one of the heads being excavated. Wow. So these heads weigh anywhere from about 6 to 40 tons. And so, I guess now would be a good time. So like, let's go Olmec, Maya, Aztec. And so the Olmecs, these guys exist from about 1600 BC until about 300 BC. So they have a really long reign in their, of their reign in Central America. And these guys, they seem to establish the idea of divine kingship all across Central America. So this idea that kings are gods, like they're the descendants of gods. The Maya then picked this up later. And so these guys are constructing, so here's one that's under the ground. So when this was discovered, I think this head was discovered in the 1800s, and then it was officially excavated. Like this photo is probably the late 1920s. So, maybe just the top of the head was uncovered, but Jesus. It's really tough to find these sites. And I think right now...
And where is this exactly?
This is in, I believe this right here is Veracruz, Mexico.
Veracruz, Mexico.
Yeah. So Veracruz, Mexico, just like the top of the heads was left uncovered, if even. I'm not sure the exact story. I'm not sure if it's exactly recorded as to how this farmer, his name was Jose Maria, that found this head. And I'm not sure if the story is recorded as far as what he was doing to find it. Like in Göbekli Tepe, that was found by a farmer as well, who was out there. I think he's trying to cultivate his land. Ding, ding. He hits these, I'm not sure what they're made out of, maybe limestone or something, but he hits these structures and then uncovers it. Farmers find stuff all the time, all over the world. Here's another one. I think this may be the same head. So they've flattened out the area. They've excavated him. And then that may be Jose Maria posed next to it, the guy who found it. And then here's another head that was found. Are
they connected to anything? Are they connected to bodies? Are they just heads?
No, it's just a head as far as we know.
And is it obviously they were moved by something?
Yeah. Oh, this is crazy. This is literally the exact same mystery that we see in ancient Egypt. Okay, these guys established themselves alongside the biggest rivers in their areas. So the reason that dynastic Egypt is so powerful is because they were able to cultivate a massive flowing river like a very powerful river, and they were able to learn how to cultivate the land around them. They were masters at cultivation, and they built massive empires because of the Nile. The Nile was the source of their life. These guys had the exact same thing. They had two different rivers, and they harnessed the production of maize, which maize is like corn is everything to Central and South Americans. They harnessed maize, and so they had all the wealth of Central America at the time that they reigned. Now, what's really interesting is all of their wealth, all of their riches, everything that they had was totally based on what gave you life. So they had access to the water, they had access to the food, they were able to farm. These basalt monuments, they're jade artifacts. So in Central America, these people weren't mining down far enough to mine gold out of the ground, but they could get jade. They could get other precious stones. So jade was seen as gold to them. All of their precious artifacts that we find in their tombs do not come from Olmec heartland. They come from hundreds of miles away. Or in the case of the Olmec heads, the basalt comes from up to about 50 miles away. The problem is it's not 50 miles away it's not along a river. It's not a straight path. It's through jungles, mountains, and rivers. There is literally no evidence as to how they were able to move these. And it's almost exactly the same mystery as in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. We see the rose granite stones that are in there. The rose granite stones weigh anywhere from 20 to 80 tons. And in the ceiling, some of those columns are 80 tons a piece. There's no explanation as to how they were moved from the Aswan quarries, which are 500 miles south in Aswan, Egypt, up to the Giza Plateau and then carried up into the pyramid. This is damn near the exact same mystery because they were mined out of they found the quarries just like the same way they found the Aswan quarries in Egypt, but they were mined out of the volcanic belt of Veracruz, and so basalt is like volcanic rock, and so they mined out these giant boulders. Now what's interesting is they believe that these were carved on the site that they were found, so they were carved when they arrived. So You may pull up like Levinta Olmec altar. If you just look up Olmec altar, you'll see it. In here, you can see that there's chunks of this missing, and so there were these giant boulders, and then they carved them out. So I mean, you're looking at monuments that weigh anywhere from about 10 to north of 50 tons when they're moved. Okay, and they're being moved through the jungle. They're being moved through mountains, swamps, and rivers, and archaeologists just so any one of these first ones, so you can see that it has like a lip that comes over, and so imagine all of the weight that was in the stone. That's a really cool thing that we'll talk about in a second. There's catamundis in there.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, so look at how far the lip comes over. Imagine all the weight that used to be on the stone before it was all removed
Whoa.
You get what I'm saying? So imagine how heavy that was. Now this, I just did a video on this. I want to say this is about 32 tons. So the original block I'm going to estimate is near about 40 tons. And dude, there's hundreds of these monuments, hundreds of them all over the Olmec heartland. And
how do we move them?
oh man, it's an arduous process. Like they've tried to move.
You need cranes to move 40 tons? Do you need a crane to move 40 tons?
Yeah. You need a crane to pick it up, to put it on a truck that can lift it. But what's really interesting is they were moving like Toltec monuments in like northern central Mexico, up kind of near the U.S. border. They were moving these monuments, and the trucks were breaking down because the trucks couldn't handle the weight. So this is very similar. So what they say is that, these were balsa river rafts. And so balsa is like a type of wood there. And they say, these were balsa river rafts that move these. But there's a huge problem with that. My mentor, Dr. Ed Barnhart, he goes down to Mexico with a nautical engineer who's really interested in this. And this guy studies it. He studies the weight of them, and he creates it's like an algorithm. He creates this algorithm where you can insert the hypothetical size and weight of your hypothetical Olmec head. And then he was like, how big does the balsa raft have to be to actually transport it? And what he found is insane. I've never seen anybody talk about this before. So these rivers that are in the Olmec heartland, some of them are like truly massive, wide, long rivers. What he found was that even if you made the raft 50 feet long and 50 feet wide, it's so big that it couldn't make it all the way down even the narrow parts of the river. If you put a 5-ton Olmec head on a raft that's bigger than the river itself, it would sink the raft. The smallest head is 6 tons.
Well, there goes that theory.
So how do you move the 42-ton La Cobata head? So the biggest one, you could look this up too, the La and then Cobata Olmec head. And so what's interesting about him is he's the only Olmec head that has his eyes closed. Oh, click on the one where it's a person standing next to it. There's a diagram on there.
Oh, there's a person.
Yeah. So there's a person standing next to him. So some of the Olmec heads, I was taller than them when I walked up to them. I'm 5'10". I was taller than the head. I could like barely see the top of the head. Think about how tall this guy is. I mean, he's got to be 9-10 feet tall. And so there's no explanation.
It's interesting. You don't see the perfect symmetry that you see in Egypt.
No, you don't see that.